Welcome to Carbon Conversations, a podcast by Biochar Life, where we explore the cutting edge of environmental solutions, from biochar to smart agriculture to the climate tech revolution. We sit down with experts and business leaders at the forefront of change. This is your host, Matt Rickard. Hey, Mats. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. It's great.
Cool. And actually, how are you doing and where are you doing? Although we've spoke very briefly, just give me a reminder, and for our audience, where are you today? I'm obviously in the north of Thailand, but yeah, what about yourself?
I'm in the south of Sweden, so not far from Malmo and Copenhagen here.
Cool, nice. Well, look, we're here to talk about the work you do, and I've been kind of researching your website, your organization, and some really interesting stuff. I kind of sense that we could probably speak for about 8 hours on all the different subjects and topics. And you've written a few books around the kind of, I suppose, broadly speaking, around energy transformation and some of the challenges and the solutions to the things that we're trying to achieve as we shift away from traditional energy. And we'll definitely get into some of that. Perhaps a good starting point, yourself, Global Energy Transformation Institute, which is yours, that you founded. Just as an intro, give us a bit of background on yourself and when you founded that, what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working as a business consultant for 35 years by now, and I've I started to research the amount of resources that will be needed to change transportation systems primarily to electric vehicles, and I started to do that 20 years ago now, and I've written a couple of books. The first one was called Global Energy Transformation, and that gave me the name of the organization that I run, Global Energy Transformation Institute. And I've I've found out that a lot more resources will be needed to change transportation systems than people in general seem to realize. It's well, there will be a need for big investments, both in power generation, in high voltage grids, in local grids and regional grids, and also, of course, in vehicles and charging infrastructure. So this is a systemic change, not only a matter of changing vehicles, getting electric cars and electric lorries instead of fossil fuel ones. It's a matter of building this huge infrastructure to make it possible to charge all the vehicles.
Cool. I want to talk a bit about, before I dive into electric vehicles, because I know that's just one area and I definitely want to talk about it. But I mean, in terms of just more broadly, what are the biggest challenges? I mean, is that one of the biggest challenges, or are these challenges kind of everywhere in terms of energy transformation? What are, on a global scale, where are the biggest challenges that we're going to be looking at?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at the change to sustainable society overall, and I started by looking at the change to electric transportation, but I've also looked into change to circular economy, which has been written about and discussed extensively, and politicians seem to have decided that we are going to change to a circular economy. But all these changes, one regardless of which one you look at, they require large scale investments. I mean, if we want to have biological plastics or biological materials on a large scale, we need huge factories that produce those materials and those plastics, replacing the ones that we currently use for plastics production, or changing the ones that we currently use for plastics production. And the present companies that offer bioplastics or biomaterials of different kinds are quite small. So there will be have to be a huge amount of investment, a huge amount of business development. Uh, the well, the uh, creation of entire value chains, entire supply chains for the new materials, from the raw materials on a large scale to manufacturing of the actual materials and the intermediate products that are needed to make those and then distribute them to and get uh, packaging companies and different types of manufacturing companies to use those materials instead of the ones that we use today.
Where does it's actually talking about electric cars? Obviously, I'm here in Thailand where there's a few electric vehicles, but it's growing quite fast, actually, particularly in the last 18 months. But honestly, the number of charging stations is, and are few and far between versus the number of cars I seem to see. I don't have an electric vehicle, so I can't comment on how prevalent they are. But I'm assuming, anyone that scales up with something like an electric vehicle strategy within a country will be facing this issue. Typically, it's a business that is creating the vehicles. Where is the line between what the government needs to do and what the private sector needs to do? Because there is some overlap, right? When you start to look at this transformation, there are businesses that will crop up to take advantage of the opportunity, but where does that responsibility kind of cross over to government?
Yes, that's a very good question because it's not entirely clear. Sweden is the country within the EU with the largest share of electric cars at present. Uh, we're a small country, but we have 14% electric cars, and the electric cars make up more than 50% of car sales at present. And
Yeah.
that's to a large extent, I believe that's to a large extent due to our proximity to Norway, which is the leader overall in the world in terms of electric cars. And uh, well, Sweden, we tend to think of ourselves as the big brother of the Nordic countries. But and when Norway gets ahead of us in well our own in our home turf, so to speak, uh, car manufacturing, car automotive industry issues, uh, Sweden gets to look at Norway and say, "Hey, they're doing this," and Norway electric transportation, electric cars in Norway have been very generously subsidized by the Norwegian government over uh, well more than 20 years now. They started their change to electric vehicles at the Olympic Games in Lillehammer. I think
Mhm.
it was in 1994, and that was the time when a Norwegian car was launched and presented to the world. Uh, Buggy, it was called, and it's not present anymore. But it set off a change, and it was heavily and this change was heavily subsidized by the government, and they allowed for a long time. I think they still do. They allow electric cars to go free on the state-run ferries across fjords in Norway. They get to they can't use public transportation lanes into cities because there are so many of them
Yeah.
now. But uh, early on, and this promotion by the Norwegian government was very important. And in Europe, the subsidies by governments of electric cars have been very important in order to get get the markets to grow. Um, and as we know, it has been the government the EU have decided to ban the sales of petrol and diesel cars from 2035.
Yeah.
They have decided to rapidly phase out diesel trucks from starting now, basically, and through lowering the emission levels allowed from 2030 to 2035 and so on. So and these decisions have been made by governments, so they need to take some responsibility for the change, and they can't. Well, this, but it means that car buyers, truck buyers, need to pay more for their vehicles. They need to pay. They need to change uh, their ways of using vehicles, and also to get to create the opportunities for charging in various ways, which could be either very easy, as for me, as I live in a house of my own and I can install a charger at little cost. But for people in cities and towns, it's more difficult to get chargers for their vehicles, and not uh, all parking spots, parking garages have offer the opportunity to charge vehicles. Not all, at least not all, for all residents. So it's there are really and in order to change all cars in the EU to electric, and all trucks, we would need to use 50% of all electricity uh, produced in the EU at present, in order to charge cars and heavy transportation vehicles. So that and governments don't seem to have realized uh, the amount of electricity that will be needed,
Mm.
and so they have. But they will have to basically promote the or in different ways subsidize the expansion of power generation, the reinforcement of grids, uh, the expansion of charging infrastructure, and as many governments also at present subsidize the purchases of electric vehicles, because the ones who have bought them early
Mm.
on are the ones who can afford them. But later in this process, there are many households and customers who haven't well, who don't have the financial means to buy new cars or to buy more expensive electric cars, and the hopes that the prices of electric cars will go down very rapidly aren't entirely realistic. They go down, but they don't are not likely to go down at the pace needed for everyone to be able to buy an electric car within the next 10, 15, or 20 years.
Yeah, right. I sometimes think, I mean, a government making a decision like that is not, it's not meant necessarily that well thought out, but from a policy point of view, it sounds good, right? So if they're trying to show an energy transformation policy, they're going towards a green strategy to say everything by a certain date looks good, but clearly behind that, there's a lot that needs to happen to even make that possible, if it's possible. In your opinion, is that the right way? I mean, should there be a more nuanced approach to do this? I mean, when you're out there advising, consulting, are you doing that, or are you just trying to find a way how they can kind of meet that goal that they've set?
Well, there needs to be a more nuanced approach, and governments need to understand the the differences between the situations of different companies, and that some can afford electric cars, and some can easily invest in electric lorries and start to use them. Households in some cases can, of course, easily afford an electric car, a Tesla, whatever, and they can easily charge them.
Mm.
But governments need to understand that this is not the situation for everyone, and they also need to understand, for example, in order to charge, or well, if all cars in Germany and say Europe had been electric, there would be a need for a football field of chargers every
Yeah.
50 or 60 miles along the German motorways to charge, and that's only for the cars. To charge the lorries, there would be probably bigger areas because at present not so many charge along motorways, but that's also here in Sweden at least, because people like myself, I have a petrol car that I use when I want to drive long distances or
Mm.
when I want to pull a trailer, etc. But if I had to use my electric car everywhere for all types of journeys I make, that would require that I charge in public charging infrastructure a lot more than I do today.
What about the? And I'm definitely out of my expert area when I'm asking some of these questions. So this is a learning for me. I'm much more on the agricultural side of this industry. But you know, the switch to electric vehicles and the additional power that's needed, there's also the question of how that power itself is generated, right? Because obviously the motivation is to get away from fossil fuels, and that's why you don't want diesel and petrol in your car. But ultimately, you still got to produce the energy that goes into the batteries to charge the battery. What is the pathway behind that in terms of the energy, producing the energy to power and recharge those
Mm.
cars? What does that look like?
Very good question. It's we actually just finished a project in one of the logistics areas in southern Sweden, around the city of Helsingborg, where 80% of the Swedish imported fruit and vegetables pass through big logistics centers in this area, and 1,400 lorries pass through every day. Um, Either or some of them, a large share of them come from Europe with incoming fruit and vegetables, and they are then distributed across Sweden to all parts of Sweden, basically.
Mm.
And uh, in order to charge those lorries in the future, there will be a significant need for charging capacity, of course. And uh, we saw that already these companies there have installed 10 megawatts of solar panels,
Okay.
which should reduce the need for power to be distributed to this area, which it does. The solar panels generate 3 megawatts of electricity, which reduces the need at some in the summer, basically, to buy 3 megawatts of bought electricity. So, but even in the summer, there are rainy days and cloudy days when not much electricity is produced through solar. So
Mm.
the peak levels of demand are as high even in the summer as they are in uh, as they were before, and uh, the needs in the winter when there's of course, very little solar production here in up north. It's the levels of demand are higher than they were 2 or 3 years ago due to the increase of the volumes handled at this logistics area. So there is a big need to expand both power generation, but also uh, grid capacity in these types of areas, because 1,400 lorries, where say 100, 150, 200 lorries may arrive during an hour during peak hours. It's will require a lot of electricity if all of those vehicles had been electric. And well, as I said, solar generation helps, but it doesn't remove the need to have
Mm.
the same amount of capacity for generation from nuclear, hydroelectric power, and combined heat and power that we have that we had before because of the fluctuations in solar production.
What is the role of kind of emerging technology in this space, which I know is vast? I mean, there's both the hardware and the software side. The whole world is talking about AI now, and that will probably go on for some time. But yeah, I mean, I ask this very broadly. What are some of the wins, and what are some of the things you're excited about? I suppose when you start to look at emerging technology in this space and what it can do.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because well, basically we're up against the laws of physics here. Uh, the amount of electricity needed to run an electric vehicle is constant, and it's not likely to decline very much because electric motors are very efficient already. So they have more than 90% efficiency from battery to wheels, and so. And so it's going to increase a little, but so what we can do is to increase um, the well to install batteries, for example, at these areas, hotspots of power use, to reduce the need to increase the amount of electricity sent into this area at any time. So you can charge a battery during the night, and then you can use it to reinforce charging, and you don't need to have as big power production all the time, at in or power as much power fed into the area at all times. So at low levels, you can at low demand, you can use the batteries, or charge the batteries, and then you can use the batteries during peak demand periods. And those are um, opportunities, but they are not. Batteries are still expensive for
Mm.
this type of use. So, and you can't use the well, if you want to expand, well, if you want to support the grid using vehicle batteries, you can do that when at time for with car batteries, for example. But with lorries, you can't easily. Uh, well, as they are driving all the time, lorries can't be used to the same extent to support the grid. But theoretically, it would be possible for all the employees' cars that are on this area to be connected to, to chargers, or vehicle to grid chargers, which is a bidirectional type of charging
Mm.
equipment that make it possible for these vehicles that can be charged at night, and they drive into this area, and then they could be hooked up to the power grid, to the chargers when people are at work, and they could support the charging. But there are also power losses through every sequence of charging
Mm.
and discharging. So it's not a straightforward calculation. You don't get all of the capacity or all of the electricity benefit that you'd expect, because you lose 6-7% of uh, power every time you charge and discharge through the cable. One other opportunity would be to install electric road systems where vehicles are charged along the way. So you have tracks in the road, or you may have for lorries and buses, you may have overhead cables,
So like a train system, essentially. Same. Okay.
like a train system. Yes, they
Mm.
are. The overhead cables is a German technology. The tracks could be either inductive or conductive, and there are French companies offering those, some Swedish, um, uh, one Swedish, one Israeli, a few American, but they are still at an early stage of development. I mean, technologies work, but uh, they have only been tested in test installations at different places in Sweden. There is a stretch of motorway outside Paris that's going to be built, and companies use these electric track systems within confined areas like
Mm.
ports or industrial areas where they see that they can reduce the need to connect vehicles and charge, etc., and they can electrify more easily uh, if they have electric road systems. So those are some of the more promising ones, but there's no like silver bullet
Mm.
that will solve the um, entire charging challenge, but because there will still be a big need for power, there will still be a big need for grid capacity, but we can solve the challenge like connecting our computers to the internet. We
Mm.
started doing this by modems, and it wasn't that efficient. Now we connect. Well, it's ubiquitous basically to connect a computer. Anywhere you go, you can find a Wi-Fi, and you can connect it without any physical connection.
Yeah, exactly. And
So that's
sorry. Oh, well, I was just going to say. I mean, that the time that yeah, I mean, all valid points. I think the pace of innovation, the acceleration right now is incredible as well. I mean, it's been going on for 20, 30 years in terms of, but it does seem that we're in a time now where there is a real up curve. So who knows what solutions we don't know about? You don't know what you don't know until it appears. So who knows what the next few years may reap?
yes, definitely, and uh, well, the investments here are much bigger than the ones connected to getting computers connected to the internet.
Mm.
So to build a electric road systems, there will be a huge need for investment, and it doesn't help to build an electric road inside a big city or connecting just two big
Yeah.
cities like London and Paris or something like that, because most trucks don't drive on these distances only. So you need extensive systems in order to do this, and to facilitate the large scale charging along electric roads, for example, you need extensive battery installations across big geographies uh, to get help from batteries to support the grid, etc. So that we have a long period of investment ahead of us, where we need to where governments and large companies need to join forces in public-private um, uh, partnerships to actually make the right decisions, build the most relevant infrastructure. Because if we see a future where we're going to have, say, 60-70% electric vehicles in 15, 20 years, then we need to make the decisions now about how we are going to charge them, because it will take that time
Mhm.
to get the systems in place.
Are you obviously this is the work you do every day. I mean, how much of a lone voice are you, and how much? Yeah, are there a thousand other people like yourself doing this work? Because it sounds to me, I have conversations over coffee often or over beer or whatever it is with people who are not connected to this industry at all, but they will pluck up media stories around this actual problem of, everyone is talking about this shift to electric cars, but hey, look at what happened in California, and all of these examples of it, just the challenge. I mean, how solvable is this problem? How many more people like yourself are needed? What does it look like? Is it just a challenge that will be solved, or yeah?
Well, as far as I've been able to find out, I'm the only one who's written extensively about this systemic aspects of the change,
Mm.
and I've written seven internationally published books by now, starting with the global energy transformation, and but more people start to realize this and start to see that this type of investment is needed, and we are well politicians at the top and the vehicle manufacturers and so on have try to downplay the challenges and the level of investment needed, the level of resources for the implementation. A lot of people need
Mm.
to understand this, and they need to work with this in the way I can do. But there are at present very few who have access to this knowledge. So um, it is a challenge to on the one hand make big decisions and say we're going to change this, but on the other hand being blind to the um, well to the reality of what it will what will be required to go through with these plans.
Yeah, I think it does go back to my question, second question, really. I think it's so key, this collaboration between the private sector and government, right? Because government's writing policy, maybe not without thinking about strategy, and the private sector's trying to, capitalize on that. And it really is key. The collaboration between those two entities is absolutely
Yes.
critical for success, right? With these types of things.
Yeah, may I say it's one of the the type of project that we did recently in Helsingborg at this logistics area is a real eye opener, or will be a real eye opener when people learn about the results, because we see uh, in the most in the smallest smallest capillaries of the power grids are the bays that all subscribers are connected to a bay in a power station, basically on their local area, and they are these bays have very limited capacity. They may have 5 megawatts of capacity at the start, and there may only be one or 1.5 megawatts free to subscribe, and that's not or it may be less, it may be already hitting the roof regularly in terms of capacity. So and well, if you look at the possibility that there may be 20, 30, 40 lorries that will have to be charged all the time through this bay, you see that the expansion here, just charging one lorry at high capacity, say 350 kilowatts, is will be a significant demand for new capacity and new subscriptions. But charging 10 will be 3.5 megawatts, and that's way more than is available in that type of bay. So the need to reinforce these power grids in the smallest in their smallest parts, closest to the customer, will really require both a big investment and a lot of analysis, and it they're not expanded until a customer ask for a increase in their subscription. So if they ask for 1.5 megawatts, the grid company may say, well, we can't supply it, but they it may take 9 months for them to respond, and then they say, but we're going to expand this power station here, so it will be available in 2 to 3 years, uh, and and we're going to expand, and then they will have a bigger amount, but it will still be limited. So and they will most likely run into the same issue again, 4 or 5 years down the line, and have to expand it again due to increased demand. So it will be a very bumpy road ahead, as we have all these limitations around power grids that have not really been um, explored up until now. And our project, which is called Charge Helsingborg, seems to me to be an important uh, contribution in terms of the understanding of how much power and how much grid capacity will have to be added in order to make it possible to charge a lot of vehicles.
Plenty of problems to solve, which will certainly keep you busy by the sound of it. So, look, I just mindful of time, but I haven't even touched on circular economy stuff. I mean, and I didn't really do any research, but maybe we can broadly talk about that. I mean, in terms of your work in circular economy, that obviously is a big banner. But what's the stuff you're doing? Does it connect in with this? Is it different? And maybe we'll drill down into a bit of it. We can always do it as another podcast, actually, if there's a lot there. But I did want to at least touch on it.
There is a lot there because it's the same systemic aspects relevant in this. And as you know, the circular economy is an umbrella concept
Yeah,
um, uh, covering like something like 10 different uh, sub concepts like biological materials, uh, rental systems. Instead of owning a car, people are supposed to rent their cars when they need one. There are like repair instead of buying new stuff, etc. So there are like uh, 10 different sub aspects of the circular economy, and each one of them, or local production is one of them, and that's fairly easy to understand that if we want to have a sustainable society, it's much more efficient if we can produce our as much as possible of our food locally. But in order to do that, we need big systems of food production close to where we live, instead of the present ones where we have national or European systems. I don't know about Thailand, but here in Europe, as you know, we have big national systems with wholesalers and retail chains, and we have big suppliers of processed meat products,
pretty
dairy
similar.
products,
Yeah.
yeah, etc. So in order to have and this is something that's becoming more pressing here, as well, as we find that there's a big risk for war in Europe. We need to increase the share of food that's produced locally and regionally. So in order both to reduce the carbon footprint of transportation and the carbon footprint of production, but also to make our food chains less vulnerable to shocks through wars or disasters of different kinds. And that's not only a matter of like going to a farm once in a while and buying some carrots and some homemade jam. It's a matter of building big companies that can produce food for the, say, hundreds of thousands of people that live in a certain small region.
What there's a question in my head, which maybe it's a good segue towards the end of the podcast, because yeah, I think with what I just asked, then definitely we could probably do a whole circular economy unpacking, or we could pick one particular area. But I think as you were talking there, the one thing that was popping up was, from your perspective and the problems you see and the things you have to solve, what are the things that you are highly optimistic about, and what are the things that make you just want to bang your head on the wall?
uh, I'm really optimistic about the ability of people to understand uh, these things. When I talk to someone like yourself or colleagues and friends, like over a beer or over coffee, it's really it's really possible to get people to understand these things and to realize that these are big systemic challenges. But the challenge is to get the political system, the high level business decision makers to also understand it and to actually um, act on this information and to start to build, like we have in Europe, with the EU and national support for these things. There are a lot of projects being started all the time. We get 300,000 euros of financing over uh, a couple of years to investigate or work with a certain aspect of the circular economy, building local production chains for foods, etc. Or we get 2 million euro for 10 partners around the South Baltic to build services for electric vehicle systems. But that's nowhere near the amount of money that will be needed in order to roll out such solutions and develop such solutions and roll them out across Europe and um, get people to use them on a large scale. So my hope is that more people like yourself will realize this, and that more people will start to demand from governments that they align their policies and demand from big companies that they align their business strategies with the realities of this large scale change.
Cool. And the flip side of that was, what is it that makes you bang your head on the wall? If anything, maybe not.
Yeah, yes, it's this inability of the big players in the systems
Okay.
to actually um, go along to understand what the implications of the decisions they make
Yeah.
and
Right. Okay.
implications of the arguments they put forward that we are going to ban the sales of petrol and diesel cars in from 2035. Yeah, but that means we need to increase the level of investment. We need to increase the level of investment in a huge number of areas, and different countries have different um, situations. Uh, Germany has only half the amount of power per person that Sweden has, and the UK have. They're not part of the EU, of course, but the UK only has one third the amount of electricity per person that Sweden has, and Norway, which is the leader in this development, they have twice the amount of power that Sweden has. So they have six times the amount of power per person that's available in the UK, in Italy, and in Poland, for example.
Interesting. As you were saying there, I mean, the other thing is, I think there's just so much nuance in terms of the challenge per country as well. I mean, obviously, if you think of Europe as a region and the US, but when we talk about the rollout of electric cars in Thailand, I mean, I live off road here. I mean, there's no, apart from a Cybertruck, which I'm sure I'm not about to be able to buy here. That might get me to my house. But yeah, I think the challenges per country are so different as well, right? With solving these problems, it's not as simple as one fits all.
No, very much so, and we need to realize that the may I say the weakest countries in Europe from a financial point of view, they and infrastructure point of view, uh, many of them previously belonging to the Soviet bloc.
Mm,
Uh, they were uh, they are they require very big investments, and also countries like Germany and Italy and France, etc. They have much bigger challenges in terms of power supply than Sweden has. We are fortunate because we have a lot of hydroelectric power and nuclear power that were built in the 1960s, 1970s. But now these power plants and hydroelectric plants are approaching their technical lifespan, the end of their technical lifespan. So we need to not only build new capacity and expand grids, etc. We also need to replace existing capacity and renovate existing plants or find ways to replace them.
Cool. Plenty to be done. So, look, Mats, it's been really
Yes.
interesting to me. I think I said at the beginning, we'll probably only scratch the surface, which I don't think we've even done that, but it has been genuinely interesting. Where can people find out more about yourself, get in touch, learn what you do, and also read your books? What's your latest or most recent book? And maybe if you want to share that, and I'll also put it in the notes.
Um, I've the, uh, the most recent book is called The Severe Economic and Social Consequences of the Rapid Change to Electric Vehicles. It was published last year. It's available on Amazon.co.uk, Amazon.com, Amazon.de. And before that, I published How Building the Future Really Works, which is about the process that needs to be created to change to go through with these large scale changes.
Cool. Well, I'll put those links and in the notes. We only met probably 10 days ago, so I obviously haven't read your books yet. So just from the audience point of view, but and also your organization, I'll put that in. Just I'll put the website address in and anything else in the notes for people to get hold of you if they'd like to. But yeah, unless there's anything else, I appreciate you jumping on today. Really interesting, and we should do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. I really enjoyed being on your show, and I'm looking forward to joining you again.
Cool. Thanks, Mats.
Thank you.